It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? From Fox 5, this is the 10 o'clock news.
Good evening. You know, just about every newspaper you picked up lately had Joey Buttafuoco's name on it. Thank goodness for him, a bullet didn't. Somebody fired a shot through his office window. And his lawyer, in a way, is blaming Madonna. Kyung Yoon reports.
The bullet crashed through the window of the Buttafuoco family-owned auto body shop early this morning. Joey Buttafuoco's lawyer, Marvin Kornberg, says the night before, someone made a threatening phone call to Joey's father.
Casper got a phone call last night, which somebody indicated to him that an attempt was going to be made on Joe's life sometime today.
At the time of the shooting, shortly after 7 in the morning, Joey Buttafuoco, his father, and his brother were all already inside this auto body shop.
They heard the noise, they heard the crash of the window, and they all ducked and the window shattered. Whoever was firing the bullet knew there were people inside, saw the people inside, and intentionally fired at an individual.
None of the Buttafuocos would talk to the media about the incident, but police confirmed they are investigating the shooting and the threatening phone call and say they have no suspects at this time.
Fight the real enemy!
Kornberg says celebrities like Madonna need to think twice before sending a message to the public that it's okay to hate Joey Buttafuoco.
The show we had on Saturday night, in which Madonna tore up Joe's picture and classified him as the enemy. On Sunday night, Casper gets a phone call. On Monday morning, an attempt is made on Joe's life. People who have a cult following, like a Madonna, should consider what they say and do on television about an individual, because you never know how somebody in the public is going to perceive what they say.
Madonna's publicist could not be reached for comment. Kornberg says Joey and Mary Jo were scared to death by this latest shooting, but will keep on living their everyday lives the best they can. In Baldwin, New York, Kyung Yoon, Fox News.
An off-duty New York City police officer was suspended without pay for allegedly shooting his girlfriend. Officials say 24-year-old Officer James Robitzik shot 18-year-old Stella Ancelone with his duty revolver. At this hour, she's in stable condition. Robitzik was a cop for less than 2 months. He worked out of the 73rd Precinct in Brooklyn. John?
Well, Corianne, for the 5th time in just 4 days, a New York City police officer was rushed to the hospital with a bullet wound. This time, it was an undercover drug operation where something went wrong. Penny Crone reports.
The backup team in a buy and bust operation was the target of a gunman who opened fire with his 9mm. Police say 2 undercover cops were sitting in their car, waiting for a deal to go down, when the shooter fired 6 rounds into their car. It all happened at Linden and Miller in East New York, Brooklyn.
The officers were parked in an unmarked police car when they were approached from the rear by one male who began firing into the auto.
One officer was shot in his wrist. The other was cut by flying glass. Both were rushed to Brookdale Hospital. Police say the undercover cops managed to fire 1 round at their attacker, but he got away.
It's a very scary situation. It speaks to the amount of guns that are on the street and speaks to the danger involved in narcotics operations.
The cops are now searching for a black man in his early 20s who's about 5 foot 7 inches tall. This is the 5th time a cop has been shot in the past 4 days. On Friday afternoon, a uniformed police officer was shot as he tried to pursue 2 hold-up men in Harlem. On Friday night, 2 off-duty cops were shot as they left a barbershop in Brooklyn. And on Sunday, another off-duty officer was shot after a group of men tried to rob him in Flatbush, Brooklyn. Commissioner, 5 police officers in 4 days have been shot. I mean, what's going on?
It's of great concern. And again, it's the proliferation of guns that are on the streets. It seems to be all over. It is a major problem. Not only a problem in New York City, it's a national problem.
Because both police officers are working as undercover cops, their names are not being released. However, both officers will be released from Brookdale Hospital later this evening. Reporting from Brooklyn, I'm Penny Crone, Fox News.
It is a night of anger and mourning in the Bronx. Hundreds gathered for a candlelight vigil in memory of Doll Johnson. The 80-year-old grandmother was beaten to death on her way to church. Police say they have the killer thanks to the quick action of an angry crowd. Rosanna Scotto reports.
We tried. How were we to know that in the daylight, serving God, she would be attacked like that?
There were tears as friends thought about how Doll Johnson's life was ended. The elderly woman walked 3 blocks from her apartment in the Morrisania section of the Bronx to her church on Sunday afternoon. But right outside the gates, police say, a homeless ex-convict hit her over the head with a pipe, dragged her behind the church, beat her to death, robbed her, but couldn't get away. Dozens of people from the homeless shelter and from the church grabbed him.
We all ran downstairs, grabbed the guy, kicked him, punched him, did anything we had to do to get him off the lady.
People know the difference between right and wrong, and what happened yesterday was absolutely wrong. You know, it was barbaric. And to these people that come to this woman's aid, you know, shows that even in a neighborhood like this, that a lot of good people live here.
Christopher Batiste was arrested. It now comes to light that he has spent time in a mental ward and was convicted of burglary, robbery, and assault. Now he's charged with murder. The 33-year-old lives in the homeless shelter right across the street from the church, a shelter which houses more than 700 men. No official wanted to talk with us, but a few who live there describe Batiste as emotionally troubled.
It's not really him. It's the drug that he does. It's
what does he do?
Dust.
Yeah, he smokes
Angel dust?
Angel
Yes,
dust.
he
And the
does.
dust that when you do dust, it brings out the other side of you.
When she couldn't hurt him, you know, if he just had a knife and just cut the straps and took the bag, he didn't have to do it that way. He didn't have to do it that way. The shelter has to close. You understand what I'm saying? There are kids that go to St. Augustus Church, and all these kids have to be escorted adjacent to the shelter.
Doll Johnson was very active here at the Salvation Baptist Church for about 50 years. Now the pastor and her friends are trying to figure out how to say goodbye to one of its most beloved members. From the Bronx, Rosanna Scotto, Fox News.
There will not be many smiling faces in Albany tomorrow. That is when Governor Cuomo releases his budget proposal. He wants to cut 1,000 jobs in mental health, also cancel a planned income tax cut. Plus, the governor wants to hike the cigarette tax 21 cents. That's to 60 cents a pack, the highest in the nation. Even with all of that, the state faces a potential budget gap of $4 billion.
And the Pentagon says that every minute that goes by without Saddam Hussein giving in is another minute he risks even more attacks. There was another one today, a bombing raid in broad daylight. Tom Hendrick reports from Baghdad.
For the second time in as many days, Iraqi artillery batteries on Baghdad rooftops opened fire into the night sky. It was a false alarm. No missiles or Allied warplanes actually were in the vicinity. But it underscored the tension and increasing tempo of combat. Coalition warplanes raided military installations in both North and South Iraq, and the Pentagon reported that Iraqi military capability had been seriously degraded. Iraq's government-controlled news agency reported more than 20 deaths. But the war for public opinion was furiously being waged in Baghdad. Funeral services were held for 2 persons killed in Sunday's coalition attack, in which 40 cruise missiles were launched at selected targets. The victims were killed when one of those missiles struck the posh El Rashid Hotel, which was filled with Western journalists and Islamic clergy from across the world. A neighborhood several miles away also was hit, again by a cruise missile.
Why? Why they do this? What they win? America or UN or England, what they win? If they kill people, if they damage the houses, it's barbarous.
Another missile hit a location about 3 miles away, which the Pentagon said was a nuclear facility, and which the Iraqis said was a manufacturing plant. In any case, Saddam Hussein's government continues to issue statements of defiance, with UN officials saying that can only result in the mother of all defeats. Tom Hendrick, Fox News, Baghdad.
And Pentagon officials say an American cruise missile knocked off course by Iraqi anti-aircraft artillery caused the damage at the El Rashid Hotel in Baghdad. They say the missile never hit the hotel but crashed into the ground. They also do not think it exploded. The hotel was home to many foreign journalists covering Iraq.
You know, it's been quite a while since we've heard a negative word from Moscow about America's foreign policy. That changed this evening. Christopher Jones reports from the United Nations.
The United States and its allies sent a clear message. It was raising the stakes in its showdown with Saddam Hussein, when it launched the first of more than 30 Tomahawk cruise missiles on the outskirts of Baghdad Sunday. The escalation of violence continued Monday with a raid on Iraqi air defense sites, the first such attack made in daylight. At the conclusion of the air raid, an Air Force jet fired 2 missiles at an Iraqi MiG-25 and reported an unconfirmed kill. If confirmed, it would be the second shoot-down of a MiG in 2 days. After spending the weekend at Camp David, President Bush returned to the White House to prepare for his final departure. But for now, he's still calling the shots.
I sincerely hope that Saddam Hussein understands. I think Governor Clinton has been, President-elect Clinton has been very supportive in all of this. And as I get ready to leave the presidency, I would just simply say how very, very proud I am of the men and women of the armed forces who once again have carried out their important mission.
And in Washington, President-elect Clinton told a gathering of diplomats Saddam Hussein should not expect a change of policy when Clinton enters office.
We do not relish the prospect of military force, but when necessary, we will not shrink from using it when all appropriate diplomatic measures have been exhausted.
But at the United Nations, the Russians have now let it be known they want the Security Council consulted before the coalition conducts any more strikes. And the Iraqi ambassador was still talking tough.
We have all the right to retaliate and to do whatever that we could in self-defense.
While the United States and its allies act under the name and endorsement of the UN Security Council, right now the United Nations itself seems to be able to do little more than the rest of us. Wait and watch to see what Saddam Hussein does next. Christopher Jones, Fox News, United Nations.
During the Gulf War, most of Iraq's Arab neighbors formed a coalition that supported the U.S. and its allies. But now they are taking a stand somewhere between the two sides. The Arab League, made up of 21 nations, said it regrets the new military action, but it also called on Baghdad to respect Kuwait's independence. And Iraq's neighbors also urged Saddam to remove his police from Kuwait. He finally gave in on that point, though it was almost 3 days after the UN deadline. Today, Iraqis drove across the border into Kuwait and removed the huts, which they were using as police posts.
Well, still ahead on the 10 o'clock news, we'll give you a front seat for the big party down in Washington.
Police dig up the dungeon that was a private hell for Katie Beers. And then Madonna talks with Liz Smith about her steamy new movie.
And Shannon Doherty's in trouble again, this time because of her checkbook. John Esposito's house is a little bit less of a house of horrors tonight, but no less a target for the curious. That underground dungeon, though, isn't underground anymore. Bob O'Brien reports.
The wood, concrete, and tar-papered dungeon was raised from the earth behind John Esposito's home, looking bigger than one would have imagined. Police videotape of its interior showed how cramped 10-year-old Katie Beers had been while chained inside the coffin-like loft, only 7 feet long and 2 feet high. Hanging from the cable of a huge crane, the crypt-like bunker silently testified to the enormity of the crime committed by shackling a terrified 10-year-old inside for 16 days. Police investigators crawled inside the chamber, in which the child reportedly told police she fought off 10 sexual advances by her tormentor as he touched her beneath her clothing. A search of the ground from which the dungeon had been removed was done to see if any other children may have been victimized by Esposito there.
We have not found any support to substantiate the fact that maybe someone else has been in there previously, so we're investigating that.
William Ferris, who will prosecute Esposito in court, watched the unearthing, as did dozens of spectators, many parents with children. Kevin and Lila Nolan brought all 6 of their kids, 4 girls, 2 boys, 14 to 7 in age. 10-year-old Kristen was once Katie Beers' schoolmate. Did you ever imagine, since you heard about all this, what you would have done in that situation?
I don't know. I would have been so scared. I don't know.
What do you think should happen to the man who did it?
He should be in jail for a very, very long time.
The dungeon in which Katie Beers was held captive is now going to the Suffolk County Police Department's Property Bureau section in Yaphank, where it will be safeguarded as evidence for the trial of John Esposito, who is expected to be indicted for kidnapping and possibly sexual abuse too, perhaps as early as Tuesday. In Bayshore, Long Island, Bob O'Brien, Fox News.
There still are so many questions surrounding that dungeon, including whether anybody knew about it besides John Esposito and Katie Beers. Jeff Weiser is standing by right now outside the Esposito home in Bayshore. Jeff?
Well, Coran, it's certainly a cold night here in Bayshore, kind of an odd scene right now. There is no one in the house there. This is John Esposito's house. No one's in the house. John Esposito is in jail. He's being held on $500,000 bail. There are some lights on back there. And as you can see, there are some policemen there. There's a Suffolk County Police Department command post over here. Now, earlier in the evening, I spoke with the father of 16-year-old John Beers. The teenager has reportedly accused John Esposito of molesting him. Demetrius Rodriguez of Mastic Beach told me that he believes his son's story about sexual abuse, but does not think his son knew about Esposito's dungeon when Katie Beers was in it. This is what a Suffolk County police spokesman said when we asked him about John Beers' allegations.
To my knowledge, that has not occurred. He has made no statements to any police officers. We've interviewed him a number of times, and we're going to continue to interview him and other people, members of the family, as well as friends of Mr. Esposito.
I also interviewed John Esposito's lawyer tonight, Andrew Sivan. He said he would not comment on the latest allegations against his client. And he did say that John Esposito has a good side, a positive side that the public does not know about. Reporting live from Bayshore, this is Jeff Weiser, Fox 5 News. John and Cora Ann, back to you.
Jeff, before you get away, there was a report that John Beers claimed that he knew about this underground dungeon. If that's true and he didn't tell the police, could he face any possible charges?
Yes, John, he could face charges, but that hasn't been determined yet. John Beers is going to be interviewed by the Suffolk County authorities. So it hasn't been determined, but he may very well face charges.
All right, Jeff.
Okay, John.
Been a shakeup in the transit police. The man in charge of investigating corruption was accused of sexually harassing some of the women in his office. Deputy Chief William Weiss. He's been transferred to another bureau. He could face criminal charges. All the files in his case have been turned over to the Brooklyn DA.
When Bill Clinton takes over the White House, he will have to hit the ground running. And in the area of foreign policy, that means borrowing a little from the past administration. Niles Latham reports from Washington.
Marching to the sights and sounds choreographed by his friends from Hollywood, Bill Clinton began to recast himself in the role of president, using a diplomatic corps reception to outline the shape of his foreign policy.
The American people have called for a new administration. Yet there is an essential continuity in our foreign policy. Our relations and actions abroad are rooted in enduring interests, alliances, friendships, and principles.
The speech was one of a series of campaign-style events for Clinton, who suddenly finds himself on the defensive and needing to overcome a transition marred by criticism over broken promises and the slow pace of forming a government. But Clinton takes over as commander-in-chief, having made barely 100 appointments, and faces a dizzying series of crises in Iraq, Somalia, Bosnia, and Haiti.
Our foreign policy team is in place now and ready to go, and I think that come Wednesday we'll be ready to deal with whatever comes our way.
But the Clinton team was forced to ask a number of Bush administration appointees to remain at their posts. Among those who have agreed, Edward Dirigian, Assistant Secretary of State for the Middle East, and Bernard Aronson, the State Department official responsible for Haiti. Aides say the real purpose of all the symbolism and all the speeches and all the events of this inaugural week is to put Bill Clinton in the spotlight and to assure the country that despite the problems of his transition, on Wednesday, he'll be ready to be president. At the Blair House, Niles Latham, Fox News.
Doesn't look like Jean Harris is going to get out of the hospital in time for her parole hearing on Wednesday, so the parole board may go to her. She's still in stable condition. She's recovering from a blood clot. Her lawyer says she may have gotten that clot from the shackles prison officials made her wear. Now that Governor Cuomo granted her clemency, it really is just a matter of paperwork before she gets out of jail. The man who got a baboon liver last week had some more surgery. Doctors removed a tiny bit of that liver so they could examine it. It was the second biopsy they've done. The tests were needed because he was producing more bilirubin than normal. That could indicate trouble with that liver. Corinne?
And John, hundreds of American troops are packing up in Somalia, getting ready to come home. A contingent of about 850 soldiers is scheduled to leave tomorrow. They will be the first to return since the beginning of Operation Restore Hope. And Washington is hoping to transfer control of the mission to the UN as early as next month.
And still ahead, this was a day to honor Martin Luther King Jr.
Also, a deadly train accident in Indiana. We'll be right back.
There was a train crash outside of Chicago. 7 people were killed, 69 hurt. 2 commuter trains collided near Gary, Indiana. One of the trains was stopped about 10 feet too far over a switch. Scott Smith reports.
It was just after the morning rush hour when a westbound South Shore commuter train headed for Chicago sideswiped one headed eastbound en route to South Bend.
And I said, get down, the glass. And she got down, I got down, and my daughter Allison was next to me. And when I went to go down in the seat, she went to the aisle so I wouldn't be on top of her. And then all of a sudden the train stopped and it jarred us a little.
Those killed and severely injured were riding in the head car on each of the electrified trains. The impact peeling the metal sides of the cars back like sardine cans.
It appears as though it happened from the walls being bent over from the side swiping, and it just passed right through. It's like a big razor blade.
Most of the people who were able to walk were holding on to other people who were injured, or the people who were laying on the ground, they were being attended to by other passengers.
Rescue workers were severely hampered because the crash site was at the top of the snow-covered embankment. Aerial ladders were used in the slow, painstaking task of bringing victims down the hill. Then they were quickly taken by helicopter to area hospitals. Once the dead and injured were removed, attention focused on what happened. The crash occurred where double track merges to single track over a trestle bridge. Bill Moeller saw the crash from his office and says that the eastbound train was definitely stopped.
The 2 trains appear to be one was sitting still, and the other train came across the iron bridge over there and ran into the other one and saw a big puff of smoke.
Inexplicably, the eastbound train stopped beyond stop-and-go signal lights, just 10 feet the other way, and the accident would not have happened. Scott Smith, Fox News, Gary, Indiana.
And today is a day Americans remember the work of slain civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King. In his hometown of Atlanta, Georgia, his widow Coretta asked for an end to violence, saying the country needs a revolution of values to bring racial peace. More than 1,000 people filled the Ebenezer Baptist Church, where King used to preach. And the day had an extra special meaning in Arizona, which just made Martin Luther King Day a state holiday. Thousands of people marched in celebration. In past years, the march was more of a protest to pressure the legislature. Voters approved the statewide holiday in last November's election.
And Brooklyn held its own tribute to Dr. King. It's always the largest one in the city. The Brooklyn Youth Chorus performed. And Mayor Dinkins aimed his speech at those too young to remember Dr. King. He talked about his days as a young Marine, when he had to stand on line for hours for a bus to take him back to camp.
And when I got to the door of the bus and the driver said, 2 more white seats. Oh yes, these were the days when we were told, you Negroes ought not be too pushy. Because, no, that was the word, don't be too pushy. It has taken a long time and it will take longer. We were told sometimes, you know, they only lynched 5 last year.
And there was a big rally against racism in Midtown. There was also a march across the Brooklyn Bridge.
That killer storm finally is making its way out of Southern California and leaving behind a path of devastation. In the ritzy area of Laguna Beach, 3 expensive homes were washed right off their foundations. About 100 people had to be evacuated in the early morning before the mountainside gave way. And a huge avalanche came crashing down in Norway. The crush of snow flattened everything in its path. One house was completely destroyed. 3 people were inside at the time. At least one of them was reportedly killed.
Well, Wall Street had a quiet day, thanks in part to the holiday. The Dow closed up almost 4 points. Few more winners than losers on the big board. The price of a share was down 2 cents. Over in the American exchange, the price of a share was up a penny. The index there up a fraction. Over the counter, the NASDAQ composite was up about a point. And the new man in the Oval Office may not be having much luck in Keep Your Promises department, but he is having some luck when it comes to the economy. Here's our Fox Business News report. President-elect Clinton is only days away from taking over as the leader of our country and our economy. As he makes the transition from president-elect to commander-in-chief, he will find that the economy he's inheriting is steadily improving. Inflation is at a 6-year low. Mortgage rates for home buyers are around 8%, And corporate America is leaner and meaner than it's ever been.
Basically, they've got a pretty good place to start from, other than the very high starting level of the budget deficit.
I think if he goes back and listens to what he promised the American public and corporations, it's basically to retrain, rebuild, and reinvest in America, and he should follow through on those campaign pledges.
At the same time, Ford's doing their part to improve the employment picture. The #2 car maker is set to hire nearly 1,500 people to work at their truck plant in Louisville. The new jobs are part of Ford's $650 million expansion this year. And Pepsi is also branching out to boost sales. Their newest drink, Crystal Pepsi, is making its national debut during the inauguration. Pepsi hopes these ads will appeal to the 20-something generation of soda drinkers. Finally, Disney's latest expansion effort, Euro Disney, is still struggling. With attendance lagging, the park's chairman, Robert Fitzpatrick, an American, has quit. He will be replaced in April by a Frenchman. And that's the Fox Business News for Monday, January 18th. Still ahead, the man with $1 million passion for guitars.
Bill Clinton's busy day as the nation prepares for his inauguration. Also, it looks like Shannon Doherty is having some trouble with the bank.
And Madonna talks about her new movie and all those steamy sex scenes.
You didn't apologize.
Let me just update our top stories for you. Somebody took a shot at Joey Buttafuoco's auto body shop in Baldwin on Long Island a day after he got a death threat, and that was just the day after Madonna tore up his picture on national television. A police officer should be getting out of the hospital tonight. He was wounded during an undercover drug investigation in Brooklyn. The 5th officer wounded in 4 days. And the Allies launched another attack on Iraq, and the Pentagon says Saddam can expect no warning if they decide to strike again. Carl.
All right, John, coming up in sports, Sir Charles Barkley becomes a royal pain in the you-know-what for the referees. We'll hear from Charles and show you some unbelievable footage of the Barkley man jumping over a press table and verbally attacking a referee following the game. Stick around, you won't believe it. Corian?
You're right. Thanks very much, Carl. And Washington is completely consumed by the inauguration. 17,000 people packed in to watch a rehearsal for tomorrow night's American Gala. The price of a ticket was donating canned food to the needy. The show will feature a reunion of the rock band Fleetwood Mac. And Demetrius Theophanis, a waiter from New York, is one of the faces of hope. He is one of 50 people getting a special up-close look at the inauguration. It started with a luncheon hosted by Bill Clinton. Ike Pappas looks at some of the other big events today.
A down-home hoedown tonight by the Arkansas Society topped off a hectic second pre-inaugural day in D.C. for the Clintons and the Gores. Earlier, they dropped in on 4 official dinners in their honor. The president-to-be was up early, jogging near the White House, waving to stunned pedestrians and saying how he liked yesterday's stirring welcome to the Capitol.
I was just overwhelmed by it.
Later, Clinton zipped over to his alma mater, Georgetown University, to meet students and address Washington's diplomatic corps, Saddam Hussein and Iraq not far from his mind.
I support the international community's actions designed to bring him to full compliance with all United Nations Security Council resolutions. And I ask each of you in the diplomatic corps to emphasize this point to your own governments.
Next, the presidential party headed for ceremonies honoring the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King.
Now in these heady days on America's mountaintop, we must remember with Dr. Martin Luther King that we have much work to do against stiff odds with not a day to waste.
Meanwhile, thousands flocked to the second day of the Folklife Festival called America's Reunion on the Mall, while others waited patiently online for tickets to the balls and other events they ordered but never received. Well, so go inaugurations. Ike Pappas, Fox News.
And Mr. Clinton takes the oath of office at noon on Wednesday, and you can see it all right here on Fox. So our coverage begins at 11:30 in the morning with a 2-hour inaugural special. I will be there along with Jim Ryan and Bob O'Brien. And then we will wrap up today's events with a special report at 11 that night, right after the 10 o'clock news. And still ahead, one television star that's not a big hit at her bank.
Also, the man who plays 500 guitars.
Turns out there may be a bigger figure than 90210 in Shannon Doherty's life. The amount of money she owes around town. She's one of the stars on that show on Fox, and the word is she owes more than $36,000 to her bank and another $61,000 on a credit card. She makes $12,000 a week. You might look for a show coming up on budgeting. Correct?
And John, wait until you hear about one man's budget to keep up his guitar collection. It takes 6 figures a week to feed his passion. Amy Atkins reports in tonight's Fox Style News.
The guy who owns the Batmobile has gone batty over guitars. Cybernetics CEO Scott Shinnery doesn't play second fiddle to anyone when it comes to guitars. He's got hundreds of them, and he says he spends to the tune of $100,000 a week acquiring more. Shinnery believes guitar collections are the 90s art market.
There's a whole generation of people who are coming into money, if you will, who have a real interest in these things. They can relate to a 56 Fender Stratocaster more than they could ever relate to any Picasso or Van Gogh or something.
Shinnery also owns the only surviving Batmobile from the TV series, but he spends a lot more time in the guitar room.
Every day, about 4:30 in the morning, I come in here and I spend the first 2 hours in here by myself playing I'd maybe go through a dozen guitars a day.
Guitar collecting first struck a chord for Shinnery when he was a teenager working in a music store.
One day, a little old man brought in this old guitar, and I sat down and played it, and it was like the neatest thing, because it was like going back in time. I sit there and hear these sounds and feel this feeling that someone 100 years ago had experienced the same thing.
500 guitars later, the song remains the same. Amy Atkins, Fox Style News.
Life magazine has always been the biggest one on the newsstand. No more. There's a new managing editor, Daniel O'Krent, and he is shrinking it to about the size of Fortune magazine. He's shrinking the staff, too. Pink slips are going out any day. Still ahead, Madonna tells Liz Smith all about her sexy new movie, Body of Evidence. We will have the forecast for you.
Then Carl has sports, including why Charles Barkley was so upset. We'll be right back.
And Madonna is everywhere you look these days, even more of her than Joey. Hyping her new movie. It's called Body of Evidence. The critics don't like it, but Madonna says she's proud of her work. She told Liz Smith what attracted her to the part.
What I liked about her was that she had a sense of humor. So,
anything else about her?
She didn't apologize for anything she did. I like that too.
That sounds sort of like Madonna.
Yeah.
A lot of the publicity surrounding this movie, it's centered on the sex scene. So that the sex in the movie was going to be sort of over the top, and you certainly knew that when you went into it. Did you?
Well, I didn't think it was over the top. I think this is a woman who's basically her sex life is on trial. So I think that her sex life is an integral part of the movie, and that you have to show it to a certain extent.
Did you ever consider not going maybe as far as the script or as far as the director wanted?
No, I mean, I wouldn't have read the script and said I want to do it, but I just said I want to do it. I mean, I wasn't going to surprise him at the last minute and say, look, I don't feel comfortable with this. I mean, I thought they were organic, so organic to the drama of the film, and I agreed with it going in, so I stayed with that. I would like for people to go in there and just be able to judge the movie or enjoy the movie for what it was, instead of thinking about all the stuff that they read about me.
Sounds to me like you approach this pretty much like any actress being hired to do a movie.
Well, I think you have to. A movie's a sum total of so many things, the director's point of view, the way an actor wants to play a scene, the way the cinematographer lights it. You would be fooling yourself to go into a movie and think, I'm in charge of this, and I'm gonna. I mean, look, you could do the best performance of your life, and then somebody can go. The editor can change everything that you've done by cutting it differently. So you really do have to surrender yourself.
Well, in the whole body of your movie making, have you been fairly satisfied, a little bit, half and half with the way things come out?
I'd say half and half. I'm really proud of some performances. Not crazy about some choices I've made as movies. Some movies I didn't think were great movies, but I was good in them. It's really been different every time. I think I'm probably most proud of this movie.
I'm Liz Smith for Fox News.
Well, Julie has the night off, so yours truly has the forecast for you. A big difference from what we were accustomed to this weekend, because tonight we are dipping down in the teens. Right now it is 26 degrees, the dew point is 10, humidity is 50%, and the wind is coming from the west at 10 miles per hour. The barometer is 30.50 and it's on the rise. Overnight, it'll be partly cloudy and cold, low of about 19, a little chillier in the suburbs, 12 to 17. And now here is a look at what we can expect as we head into the week. Tomorrow, mostly sunny and cold, highs of about 32. On Wednesday, mostly sunny again, not much of a change, high of about 38 degrees. And Thursday, partly sunny and mild, high of about 42. And finally on Friday, a chance of a shower, high of 45. And Saturday, partly sunny, high of 42, almost a heat wave there.
Big celebration at the Seaquarium in Miami, a baby manatee, and it's a boy, a big one at that, 4 feet long, 60 pounds. His mom is named Marjorie. She is 8 years old. His dad is Romeo. He's in his 30s. All right, Romeo.
And that little fella, of course, will be getting great medical treatment if he needs it. But a lot of people worry about what they can afford for their pets. Hillary Howard reports.
This is putting a new face on the old medical plan.
We have 3 different types of plans depending on the life stage of an animal: a puppy kitten plan, and a mature dog and cat plan, and a senior program. Senior animals are often overlooked, so we thought that was very beneficial.
Meet Michael Lawson, creator of Vet Plan, a maintenance program for pets. It's the latest human health care innovation that's gone to the dogs.
20 veterinarians are participating with this HMO in the Washington-Baltimore area. It's not an insurance company. You're paying a flat fee for certain health maintenance for your pet.
The most expensive plan's $225 a year. The basics, $90. It includes all the normal procedures, vaccines.
That's it. There's a nice face, huh?
Toe trimming, and even ear cleaning.
Oh, yeah, right there, Mom.
It is a truly innovative plan. I feel it's necessary for anybody that has problems with a dog more than once a year. Certainly even some people that don't.
How much do you spend yearly on your dogs?
A few hundred, probably, each.
Michael Borsett likes the HMO idea since basic costs are rolled into one. Spaying and neutering are included in the fee for young felines and dogs. Chest x-rays and blood work are included in the senior plan.
Especially for adult maintenance and aging animals, it's very important for owners to get in there and get that routine health care done. It's the key and the basis to having a long life and a healthy life.
Vet Plan's just getting off the ground in Maryland, but creators hope to reach 5 states next year. So the bark of this health care plan may be worth the bite to your budget. In Anne Arundel County, Hillary Howard, Fox News.
All right, Carl's up next for sports.
The Knicks, Nets, and a Big East showdown when we come back.